good morning, good morning. It is a not very sunny Monday morning. And like I mentioned at the very end of last week's vlog, we're going to Chelsea Flower Show. But what I didn't mention in the vlog was that we're actually going on press day, which is quite extraordinary, but can't do any filming in there because the BBC owns all of the footage rights to all of the RHS shows. So I'm not sure how this is going to go. But Sloane Square, here we come, and then we're going to walk to the flower show and see if they will actually let me in with a press pass, because I still think it's a bit of a hoax. So like I was saying, I can't do any recording when I'm in there, so it's going to be all photographs. But I've got to go and find an entrance that I've never used before. It's like, normally I go in the main entrance. Now I've got to go and find Thames entrance. Wish me luck. Right, so this is looking positive. I mean, I'm not a vehicle, but it is still pointing to RHS Chelsea, because normally I would go in the kind of the big standard entrance at the Royal Chelsea Hospital, which is on the other side. Look at this. These flowers, they're all fake. Isn't that upsetting? Like, it's just, I mean, it looks fantastic, but they're all plastic. Such a shame. So that's the boundary of the Royal Chelsea Hospital, which is where Chelsea Flower Show is held every year. And now I've just got to find my way in, but ooh, it's all a bit hooty. Seeing that big sign saying Caterer's Gate has just reminded me that I haven't had any breakfast, and I have an emergency prawn sandwich from Marks and Sparks in my bag. And I might find somewhere to go and eat that first, because firstly I don't think they're going to let me in there with a sandwich. And also I'm blooming starving, so I think that's going to be my first port of call before I attempt to get in. So I was just going to nip down to the river, but it looks like it's all been blocked off, so I'm just going to head down here, which looks like some sort of private thing into an office block, and hope there's somewhere I can perch. This'll do. They've closed it all off. It's always a problem when they have big events like that though, isn't it? That all the places that you would normally go, you can't. Right, prawn sandwich. Not a standard breakfast, but you know. Okay, let's go. Sandwich consumed. If I can ever get across this road. Helpful map. So this is where I am, red dot, and there, that little Thames is where the press entrance is. But I'm supposed to walk along there, and look, this is the patch that I'm supposed to be walking along. Not helpful. Oh look, just thought I would draw your attention to this. What a number plate. Very nice. I think I found the queue for the press tent. Okay, I guess we better get in it. Well, they let me in, which was the first big thing. I got up to the desk and gave my name, and sure enough, there was a press pass waiting for me, which was the biggest hurdle because I was a bit worried about that, to be honest. This was by far the weirdest Chelsea experience. I mean, obviously press day is going to be different because you've got a lot more filming going on. Obviously I'm going on a day when there's also no crowds. I've always thought, oh, wouldn't it be incredible to see this place without crowds? Turns out it's not. Having said that, the gardens this year I thought were really, really lovely. We had no sunshine, the skies were very, very grey. This year they had the Sanctuary Gardens back again. My favourite of them was the Stitches Garden. I just thought it was absolutely beautiful. Those white allium heads and the yellow lupins and those golden grasses I thought was stunning. It was just such a beautiful space. I was really, really impressed with that one. I noticed this year that there was a lot of really, really hot colours. Like, you go through phases with Chelsea and there was loads of really, really vibrant reds this year and dark purples. which you sort of haven't seen for a couple of years, I don't think. I mean, a couple of years ago, everything was purple and orange you got. This year, there was a lot of really hyper strong colours and then a lot of really muted. There was a lot of just green, yellow and white planting, which was really sweet. Okay, so weird day, right? This is Main Drag, the main shopping aisle, and you've got all the little stalls down the side. And I mean, I saw Niwaki, which, like, swoon, had a good old stare at the secateurs, you know the game. The fact that, you know, I ate my prawn sandwich before I even got in there. There was no catering, because obviously the catering's only open for when the general public is there. So there was, all the vans were there, everything was telling me what I could have had if I'd been on another day, but nothing. Even the bar was shut, which I thought was pretty poor show, to be honest. I did manage to get myself a cup of tea, but it cost, oh, I can't even remember how much it was, but it was more than £3.50. It was like £3.75, £3.90, something like that. But I needed it because there wasn't even any drinks, there was no food. Obviously I met up with people I know who I was there. It was lovely to see Jem's the mother cooker, and Kirsty was there. Then there was the Marshalls garden, which I mean, it was impressive, but I didn't tug on your heartstrings. Like, some of the stands that have been in there in previous years are really, yeah, they've really taken my breath away with the veg and like the inspiration of it. And this one was just a little bit wrong. Everything was perfect, but perfect in a way that made it unbelievable and not a joy to look at. Even the chard wasn't a joy to look at, which I've got to say, I always like looking at chard. The cabbages were ludicrously large. I mean, they were handsome, and maybe it's just jealousy talking. There was none of the vegetable stand, as in the grown vegetables, where they show off their incredible onions or their 30 identical carrots or any of that, which is a whole side of gardening that I know nothing about, but I really enjoy looking at. I like to sit down, I like to have some lunch, I like to have a glass of wine or a pint and sort of contemplate and discuss it with somebody else, and that wasn't really available this year, so it was all a bit weird. But there was some very beautiful show gardens there. I'll see you back at the allotment tomorrow. Morning. Well, Chelsea was great. I'm so sorry I couldn't film. That was really frustrating because obviously I'm used to filming. And it's really difficult to kind of construct something, so I just took like a million pictures, and hopefully you've just watched something which was kind of a bit of a reconstruction of it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it though. It was lovely, and we actually lucked out quite a lot with the weather. Even though it wasn't sunny at all, it was really grey. It's much greyer today, hence I'm hiding in the shed. It's predicted to absolutely chuck it down later, so we'll see how that goes, but for the moment I'm hiding in the shed, and I'm going to get these tomatoes in. All the varieties that I've still got some seed left, they're just going in today. I'm going to plonk them all in, and all we can do is cross our fingers and hope. Anyway, I'm going to be doing all of this in the shed because it's threatening outside. It is proper grey. Even the girlies don't want to come out. I opened the door and they just kind of looked around and buggered off back in. So yeah, right, I'm going to go and get some pots. What have I got here? A load of smalls. I'm going to be a bit economic on the compost because I don't have a lot of it. So instead of how I did it the first time, where I was all hyper organised and everything was beautiful in rows and in those trays and then potted up and all that kind of stuff, I'm going to ditch that. I'm just going to do them in round pots. You know, I've got an absolute stack of them here. We'll just start sowing seeds in a frenzy. Okay, right, tomato sowing frenzy starts now. risky strategy, that, isn't it? That way. Right, let's go. Who we got? I only need one of each to germinate. I just want one, please. Okay, tomato frenzy complete. I filled up rather a few too many pots. I was a bit overexcited. Now I'm going to put them in the greenhouse, give them a water, and that's it. So I'm going to actually race home because I've just heard a bit of thunder and I don't fancy it up here. So I'm going to race home and then hope for better weather tomorrow, because I'm going somewhere tomorrow that, well, I don't love heights. I'm not scared of heights particularly. I just don't absolutely love them. But what I really hate is lifts. And both things are going to feature heavily tomorrow. So hoping for good weather and wish me luck. Holy moly, we're going up there. And I don't think I'm going to be taking the stairs, unfortunately. Yep, so we're going up to Sky Garden, and I absolutely hate lifts, but there's no way I'm climbing up there. So this is my answer. I'll have a swift half beforehand and hope that settles the nerves. Okay, we're just queuing up, and the security in here is like an airport. Literally, we've got our passports to get up there, and we've got to go through a whole scanner and everything to get in the lift. Pretty dramatic. Well, I made it up the lift. The view is worth getting in that lift. It's worth it. They really are some spectacular views. It was well worth getting in that lift, and it took seconds. It was an amazing lift. So we're in what's known as the Walkie-Talkie Building, but it's actually, I think, Fenchurch Building, I think it's its real name. But up here you get 360 views of practically the entirety of London. It's magnificent. It's called Sky Garden. They've got some plants up here. I wouldn't necessarily call it much of a garden, but that's irrelevant. They also serve a pint up here, which is quite nice, and it's not that expensive. It's only £7 for a pint of Orchard Thieves, which is pretty good considering I paid £3.95 for a lukewarm cup of tea at Chelsea. I am pretty happy with that. I don't know if you can hear me, but it's amazing how quick that fog and rain has rolled in. Like 1 minute everything crystal clear, next minute it has really closed in, and they've closed the outside bit, so I think it might be time to head down. Good morning. It is Friday and I am in for a day of ticking off a huge to-do list. I've got so much to do. It feels like forever since I've come up here. I mean, it was only last week when I had like a whole day up here doing all that sewing and everything, but having a bit of a weird time readjusting at the moment, like coming out of COVID era. Obviously I've got quite a lot to do at home at the moment because mum is out of action, which also means that I'm the only person coming up here. Which is fine, like it's okay, but it's kind of all got away from me because coming out of COVID, I'm also sort of like trying to do other things and like do stuff basically, which it turns out the last 2 years, having not been doing any stuff, it's quite difficult to adjust back and keep the same level of allotmenting going on. So that's where I am at the moment. I'm trying to renegotiate terms with myself about what I'm doing. Because as you see, like we've had some adventures this week. I mean, how nice was the Sky Garden? I was well impressed with that actually, despite the lift trauma. Oh, shouting, by the way, it's sports day next door, so I've timed this really well for a day of filming, haven't I? So there's a huge amount of cheering going on, if that's what you can hear. It's just kids running and jumping and things like that. Do they still do sack races at school? Probably not. Too dangerous to run in a sack now, I would imagine. It's a bit strange. Yeah, so this morning I'm going to get myself in gear. The allotment looks in a terrible state. I mean, things are coming along nicely, everything's growing, the flowers are looking good, but it's just like that maintenance stuff of like the weeding and sorting the paths out and doing all that kind of stuff. At the moment it's just hectic. The Polytunnel, I'll show you what it looks like in there. Ooh. There's some good stuff. There's loads of good stuff. Like all that stuff's coming up in the greenhouse that I sowed last week. Like it's really good. But what I need to do just to get my own head in gear this Friday morning is just do a blitz. I need to tidy up. I need to sort stuff out. I need to make a to-do list, and I'm just going to get on with it. And then we're going to sow some beans. I know, girlies, I'm coming. I'm going to let you out. You're going to have a whole day out today, girlies. You are. Yeah. Right. Okay. This is going to be a day of high octane action. Come on, coming out to play. Okay, that's the girls out. God, it looks a state. I mean, it looks pretty, but more like a field than an allotment. So I do know I have to tidy up the broad beans because we've got broad beans to pick basically now, and they are flopping. So I'm going to do that. Right, okay. Get set. Yeah, we've got all of that as a soundtrack today as well. But weeding's high on my list. I know weeding is not an exciting thing for you to watch. But there we go. That's what I'm going to do. And then we're going to be sowing beans, which is very exciting. So we'll just we'll weigh it off that way. Okay, fab. Job number 1 ticked off. You can see these beans under here, the lower ones, they are looking really, really good. And I'm so glad I got them tied up, because last year we lost a load of broad beans when we had like a whole load of wind and it snapped the plants clean off because I hadn't tied them up well enough. So hopefully I've rescued these chaps and we will have beans very shortly. But look at these ones on the side, there's masses of them. Fantastico. Anyway, I did make some progress with mowing the lawn, but I stopped for lunch. But I've got loads of clearing to do. Most notably, the Polytunnel. Have a look at the state of this. I've seriously let this get away from me. Look at that poppy. It's just gone completely crazy in there. All this has to come out. It really does. So this is all the stuff that was in here over winter. And normally I would have cleared it by now. But obviously we've had all the problems with the tomatoes and all that kind of stuff. And the peppers just aren't growing this year. So I haven't actually got things lined up to go in here yet. And so everything's just kind of been left. And it's flowering. This is what's left of the rocket. And yeah, you can see it's got very, very warm in here. All this is going to go, even though the chicory flowers magnificently when it does. It's all got to go. Need clearing much? I'm not too upset about the chicory because we've got the next generation of it coming along very nicely just outside the Polytunnel. This stuff is all self-seeded and I'm thrilled about it. And even the flowers, we've got these ones which were last year's that I'm going to leave just to flower and be beautiful. So I don't feel like I'm missing out by ripping them out of the Polytunnel. And talking of gorgeous flowering things, I'm still doing a lot of staring, particularly at the pond at the moment. Look, so the tadpoles are coming on nicely. Let me just see if I can get if I can film this without either dropping you or myself in the pond. Here we go, tadpoles sunbathing, looking lovely. There's so much life in this pond at the moment. Look at all these chaps, masses of them having a lovely time. Yeah, it's just a hive of activity. Oh, it's my shadows in the way. That's not very good filming, Jessie. But yeah, damselflies absolutely everywhere. The flag irises are flowering. And have a look at this for a combo. So I don't remember planting these pale Californian poppies, but look at it with the dark iris I got for my birthday. It's so lovely, so lovely. And the oxeye daisies are flowering. And somewhere hidden in here that I just spotted, yeah, look at this. Siberian iris in there. Beautiful. A bit of blackcurrant salvia at the back. Yeah, it's just looking absolutely gorgeous. Such a shame Mum can't be up here to see it because it hasn't looked this good in a long time.
goodness, it's hot in here. Okay, so I've been building, oh, that's a good look, Jessie. I've been building up to doing that for quite a while, because I just wanted to let them all go, but I mean, I really do have to do something about in here. So now I've actually taken the plunge and ripped them out. I feel quite good about it. So I've got a bit more so I've got a bit more of the red chicory to whip out, and then there's some parsley in here which I'm going to try and save because it's in a really narrow band right up the centre. A couple of them have gone to seed, so I'm going to take them out, but the rest of them, I think I might just leave them in here and see what happens. And then it's the chard. So although with those things, like, there wasn't really much to save on them, because once they'd gone to seed they get that really hard stem, the mustard greens, and the chicory goes too bitter. I mean, chicory's bitter anyway, but it goes like face inside out style bitter rather than just tasty bitter. So I'm going to whip out the chard because it's all gone to seed. I mean, at 50 degrees in here it's bound to, isn't it? But there's loads on there that can be saved, so I'm going to pull it out. So what time is it now? It's just coming up to 2 o'clock. Oh, a terrible muddy sweaty mess, sorry. Yeah, so I'm going to leave it a bit because the sun will be fading off one side of the allotment shortly, and I don't want to whip this out and then have it just sat in the sunshine because it will fade really fast. You hear that bee? It's trying to get out. I'll rescue him in a second. Yeah, so it will fade really quickly, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it in here, clear everything else, get everything else ready, and then I'll take that out when we've got a bit of shade and I'm a bit closer to the time of taking it home, because there's still savable stuff on there. It's a good thing about chard, even when it's going to hell and it's all flowering and everything, the leaves don't change their flavour or their texture, so you can still eat them. Wonderful, wonderful. Whew. Right, last bit of chicory and the parsley sort out.
Actually, this red stem chicory was so good this year. I do have some mini seedlings for it that need to go out, but I don't have any self-seeded ones, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, the chard's looking a bit sad. That's coming home. And oh, look at this. It's another one of those blooming trees. Do you remember I was pulling these out the other week? They come up, so they grow along the boundary of the school and they come up through the bottom of the polytunnel straight in. Blooming things. Look at that matted root, they're awful. Just chuck this chap outside. These buckets of stuff to go in the compost. The compost heap is so full, I'm going to have to stand on it to try and squash it down a bit. But yeah, so give this a good wash in here. Top up the soil with a load of compost. It needs a bit of a refresh, to be honest. And then parsley. So this has decided to flower. This has been in here since last year, so it's perfectly entitled to flower. I don't feel hard done by it. But I'm going to nip the flower stems out rather than just whip all the parsley out, because only a couple of the plants have sort of started to flower. And I figure if I take the flower stems out, I'll just prolong it for a little bit longer and we will have more parsley, because a lot of the parsley seedlings are coming on now. So we'll have something to replace it very soon. I'm not bothering to chop up any of this stuff that I'm putting in there, because although I said like the stems are a bit chewy, if you're going to eat them, they're actually, like, in terms of composting, they're not hard at all. They'll just rot down in no time. But yeah, so this parsley's still looking good. Now I've nipped out the flowers, we should have that for a little while longer.
Okay, something else that's been happening over the last week. Oh God, I've got so much mud in my eyes. So let me show you what's going on in the greenhouse, because things are up.
Ooh. Oh, this makes me so happy. We've got spring onions and leeks, and this is meant to be tree spinach. That fat chap, not a tree spinach. It's those little teeny tiny ones. They are the tree spinach. They are, the seed for that is so fine. So the beetroot and the various chards that we sowed and the Cavallonero all coming up looking really, really strong. This is that dill that I picked up from the garden centre. I really need to get that out. We've got some snapdragons behind there. Tomatoes, looking good. Zinnias, only just got them in. Sweet corn desperately needs to go out. I need to clear the patch for it. Gah! Beetroot, chard, Right, and onto the cucurbits. We have got Minnesota midget melons coming up aplenty. There are cucumbers in there. Then we've got the various squash and courgettes. Who's in the front there? Oh, and these are the little red stem chicory seedlings that I've got to put out. Marvellous. This site is joy. Hey girls, pure joy, huh? Pure joy. And the beetroot that we saved from being dug up seems to have taken really strong now, so I'm probably going to take this mesh off soon and hope that somebody doesn't come along and dig it up. Fennel looking frondy. Yeah, despite the mess, it's looking really good. I'm really happy. We've got peas on the way. Actually, we've got a couple of peas I think I might pick today. Oh, they might be a bit small. That might be next week. And this, okay, so those little tiny courgettes, and we've got some sweet corn out here too. Those little tiny courgettes that are in the greenhouse, this one has come from Johanna. So I'm going to try and get that in today. And I want it to be in the end of this bed. But I've got the Enviromesh box sat on it at the moment. And it's a bit tricky to move on your own.
I've lost my teammate.
I actually just need to put in stronger battens at the top. This was the one made with those tiny little pieces. So it's incredibly wibbly wobbly and fragile. I need to fix it up a bit, poor chap. Anyway, courgette's going to go in this end of this bed, and then I'll just cover it back up with the Enviromesh because it doesn't need Enviromesh over it. I'm not using it for any other reason, and this is kind of where I'm storing the box until I can make it a bit stronger, and just a little tiny bit of protection that it's not going to say no to.
What do you want, girly whirly woos? What's going on? Yeah. Okay, it is now 5 o'clock-ish Friday. I've just retrieved myself a cider out of the water butt. I've just had it dangling in there, the one that's in the shade behind the shed, so it's nice and cold. And I'm going to sow my beans. Absolute bliss. I'm going to be using root trainers just because the beans like a really nice long root. And I'm not doing any too different from last year. The French beans that I'm doing, which are going to go across the arches on the far side, are Cobra. This was such a great tasting bean last year. I can't wait to have that one again. I've got Necker Gold, which is a yellow one, and I've also got purple one from Frankie's. So I'm going green, yellow and purple on the French. On the main arches, going down the sort of the main drag of the allotment, I've got Borlotti bean, speckled cranberry. Tried this one last year and it was such a nice tasting bean. We just decided to go with the second half of the packet, even though we normally grow a different bean, which is actually from Frankie's, and we had to get this one as an emergency one last year because we couldn't find any. Actually, it turned out to be really lovely, so we're going to grow those again this year. I'm also doing Greek Gigantes down the main drag, and the runner bean that I'm doing is Moonlight again, so all of those are the same as last year. And then I've got a whole new set of ones to try, which aren't going to go on the arches, they're going to go on teepees in one of the beds. So the extras that I got from George were a climbing French bean, which is Lazy Housewife. There's a dwarf French bean, Yin Yang. Another dwarf French, which is Jacob's Cattle, which is a shelling bean, and then there is another climbing French. Okay, so I've got two climbing, 2 dwarf. What's up, Rube? I've put them away and they can see I'm still here, so they're like, what are you doing, love? Yes, I've got those. And I have 1 extra, which is an Asturian bean, which came from Jinxie on here. Thank you very much, Jinxie. And what she says is, I have been growing these in Bristol and keeping seed for about 10 years, and I think they're super. So that sounds really exciting. And that they can be eaten green as beans, fresh from the pod, similar to Greek Gigantes, or use as dried beans for hummus, soups, etc. So that is my bean spread this year. I think I've got it all covered. Quite excited. Right, I'm going to open this bottle of cider. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to sow some beans. Could spend so long looking in that pond. Anyway, cheers. Friday evening. Sun's still out. What time is it? 5:30? It's pretty nice. But I am going to have to pack up soon. So I'm just going to enjoy this last little bit of time staring into the pond, finish this, and go home. I think it is time for me to head off. Oh, beautiful hands. Oh, yes. I've got to pick that chard that's in the polytunnel, take that home with me, take those parsley stalks, I mustn't forget. And also, I've been sat here enjoying the flowers all day, and I feel really sad that Mum can't be up here and enjoying them. So however much it pains me to cut flowers, and she can't have the poppies because the poppies just, obviously they go collapso the moment you pick them. But there are some things that could be picked. There's some more chive flowers, there's a bit of Phacelia, there is, what else have we got up there? Some Nigella, bits and pieces like that. So I'm going to pick her some flowers so that she can enjoy them too, because at the moment she's not getting much out of it, is she? No. So I'm going to do that now. And we're going to head off. What a beautiful day it's been. Do you think I got enough chard? What do you think? So we got a bit of Nigella, a bit of Phacelia, a bit of cornflower. I think she'll like them. Right, I've got to carry these home with that enormous amount of chard, so interesting. All right, I'm going to take these home to Mum and I'm off. I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers, chaps. It is a Sunday evening. It's chucking it down again outside. So wet this week. So lucky with Chelsea because obviously the day we went it was grey, but the next day, obviously you saw the weather here with the hailstones. Well, girl I know, Caroline, had gone to Chelsea that day and yeah, it was like that. And that's normally the day that Mum and I would go, is the Tuesday. That's the first members day. Yes, it just would have been awful. So Caroline was saying that she was absolutely soaked through, like she got hit by the hailstones and then from that point on, like there was no warming up or drying off. It was just miserable. And then all the trains weren't running on the way home. So yeah, she had a great time. But I gotta say, I was so thrilled to have been able to go on the press day, definitely. But it was a very, very different experience. Talking of trips, Sky Garden, loved it. I was so scared of that lift. So scared of that lift. Hate lifts. I won't even go in the lift like at Waitrose, which is only going down 2 floors. This was going up 35 floors, which isn't, I mean, admittedly, like 35 floors isn't exactly like record-breaking skyscraper or anything, but it's enough. It went up so quickly. There was none of that like shudder. Like I just don't like the idea of dangling in a box over over a hole that's 35 stories deep, dangling in a box just off on a cable. Anyway, I did it and it was wonderful and it was definitely worth it. So I would definitely do it again. And it was free. So remember that if you're in town. You do have to book about 2 weeks in advance, I think, he said. Would be better on a sunny day. But along with those 2 things, chaps, we're moving on. Tomatoes are back in. Johanna's just dropped me off some more of her tomatoes, which is incredibly kind of her because she's an absolute rescue ranger this year. Like, if you're watching this, Johanna, cheers specifically to you because serious rescue ranger. But beans are in and beans are not late. This was exactly the time that I was scheduled to sow the beans, so at least that's good. What I do need to do is do a mammoth session of strimming, tidying, weeding, all the kind of things that I'm not going to film because, like, boring. I've just caught a glimpse of myself on the screen. I look completely manic. Cheers! We got the tomatoes in, we got the beans in, the things are growing. Next week we're going to be picking beans, going to be picking broad beans, and it's all go. It is all go. Let's hope the rain stops for next week because otherwise you're going to be seeing a lot of soggy Jessie. Cheers, chaps.